A week later, the slave traders came, and half of the apprentices were sent to the mine. The only exception among the inferior students was Kalli, who was now being led to the mansion by Nixer. Now there were only a little over 10 people left in the training ground, and the training center was quiet. At the August mansion, Nixer tells Kalli that the shackles he had on would be released once he returned to the training center. Looking around the August mansion, Kalli thought about how it was his first time here. Nixer then asks him about how his body is. Kalli tells him that it was fine but wanted to know why the young lady had called for him. He tells our boy that she was interested in him after his last match. We are now in Azalea's room, where she greeted Kalli with a smile, as he bowed to her with respect. She tells Nixer to stay outside the room for a while. She then tells Kalli to sit, but he refuses, so she tosses him an apple to eat so that they could talk. She continued to watch him with a curious look as he ate the apple furiously. Azalea then tells him that she called him here because she had something to ask since slaves had no right to refuse. Looking at her right now, Kalli thought of her as someone who is hard to read. As she points her finger at him, she tells him about how amazing he was in the last match, as he did well with his thin arms and with that one-shot punch to the chin. But she mentions that her father thought that it was all because of luck and coincidence. As he hears this from her, he couldn't help but think that she was smart and quick, and that her father was right about Slit's punch being a coincidence. So he tells her about how he shook Slit's head, much to her surprise. He reveals to her that if you hit the chin accurately with your fist, then the head would shake, causing you to lose control of your body temporarily. But of course, this only applies when the impact is enough. Azalea thinks about what he said and summarizes that Kalli had simply aimed and attacked during the match. Which brings a smile to her face, so she tells him that she was looking forward to his future moves, and that she wanted him to keep winning to become a professional boxer. Since if he becomes a champion, then he might become a free person. With that, Nixer and Kalli left the August mansion and returned to the training center. As he removed the shackles on his arms, Kalli couldn't help but think of being a free person. During the afternoon training session, Torres was thinking about freedom as he squats a heavy log on his back. He was determined to achieve his goal of freedom. He recalls a past memory of himself, back when he was just 14 years old. An instructor tells him that he was going to be strong enough. Which was why this instructor had brought him over from being a farmhand, as he believes that Torres had a natural physique and fighting spirit, which will allow him to become a champion and a free person. Too bad our main character is here, he thinks. But as he threw the heavy log onto the ground, he thought about how he hated bastards like Kalli who do pathetic things every day without a goal. But suddenly, he noticed that he had changed, beating Slit and surviving, which made Torres realize that you may never know what will happen in the world. Someone then approaches him, asking him if he thought that Kalli had been acting up, so they wanted to teach him a lesson. The stranger also reminds Torres that Kalli was the one to send Slit to the mine. So he offers Torres a chance to go beat up Kalli. This insect-looking bastard was called Kiji, nicknamed the Mantis. Torres instantly rejects the Mantis, telling him that he didn't care anymore, which Mantis found boring. He thought about how Kalli wants to change himself, so he didn't want to bother him since he was just annoyed with his begging in the first place. We now turn to our little blonde boy, who flexes his arms and body, allowing him to feel that his ribs had been completely healed now. He could also see that he had gained some muscle after starting his exercises as he recovered. But then a tall shadow casts over him, stating that it had been a while since Kalli had come out to the training ground. As he looked at the figure, Kalli was wondering when this figure would show up. It turns out to be Mantis. He asks Kalli if it was fun to win easily. But our boy brushes him away, telling Mantis that it would be troublesome if he got hurt. But Mantis wasn't backing down as he told Kalli not to be scared as he was going to go easy on him. No, said Kalli with a crazed look on his face. He repeats his previous words, that it would be troublesome if he got hurt. Those words finally made Mantis snap as he shouted at Kalli, "You bastard," while taking a swing at him. Kalli easily dodges the first attack by moving backward, but as Mantis tries to land a left punch, Kalli takes the chance to launch an uppercut strike, which lands directly onto Mantis's chin, similar to how Slit took it. As Mantis's eyes turned white from the hit, Kalli believes that Mantis thought that he had won through pure luck. But Kalli knew that these bastards were the ones that were complacent. A body that has a tall height and overwhelming reach, it's like facing someone with a spear. Long jabs and punches that don't allow any approach. Hence, long reach is absolutely advantageous. But the Mantis has large movements and a bent swing, unable to take advantage of his own reach. And so, he was simply just a big punching bag to Kalli. But he also knew that he couldn't give him any breaks, so he continued to whack the shit out of him in order to keep the pressure on. But Mantis' friends appeared behind Kalli with a surprise attack. He manages to dodge the surprise attack but couldn't believe that all three of them were coming at him. He could also see that Mantis had recovered as the other two stood guard against him. Mantis then tells our boy to not get cocky with the punch he got by chance. Kalli taunts him in return, saying he was pushing him with numbers because he was at a disadvantage. Those words were right as Mantis tells him to shut up while swinging another big punch at him. But one of his friends manages to land a knee kick onto the back of Kalli, who knew that these bastards would ignore others and bully them in order to maintain their self-esteem. As he fell onto the ground and looked up at them kicking the shit out of him, he could see his past self, making him realize that he wasn't much different from them. "I can't stand it anymore," said Torres as he came back. He tells Mantis and his gang that if they were going to ambush Kalli, do it from the start. He was angry at them for looking like fools when it was supposed to be a one-on-one fight. Mantis was confused by his words, asking Torres about whose side he was on. Torres tells him that he wasn't on anyone's side but was just annoyed by the bastard who got beaten by Kalli and was acting up. "I didn't get beaten," shouted Mantis angrily, as he tells Torres that he simply had his guard down for a moment. So Torres tells him to fight one-on-one as he was willing to be the referee. Mantis agrees but hesitates as he sees Kalli slowly standing up. But fear overwhelms Mantis as Kalli unleashes a predator-like aura around his body, letting Mantis know that he is the prey this time. As Mantis throws another pathetic punch at Kalli, who dodges it with ease once again, he tells Mantis that his punch was slow, and that it'll be strange if he couldn't dodge it. Boom, 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 went Kalli as he unleashes a mad flurry of punches onto Mantis's body, none of which he could block at all. But Mantis was still able to throw a punch as he told Kalli to shut up. Our boy simply bobs and weaves through the punches, telling Mantis that he was wasting movements as well. "You're only showing your weakness," said Kalli as he swings right at Mantis's face, landing his punch right onto his chin once again. This time, Mantis definitely felt the punch as he staggered before falling flat on his face in front of everyone. Looking at Kalli, Torres sees him as an experienced fighter since Kalli's father was a champion. He thought of him having some of that talent. Kalli then calls out to him, asking him about why he had helped. Torres acts all cool, saying that he didn't need to explain that to someone like him, and that he should get lost now. After all, there were no more guys who picked on Kalli blatantly. They implicitly acknowledged that Kalli was one of the boxing apprentices. At the August Mansion guest reception room, Gadolf tells someone not to worry and to proceed with the match as usual, much to the shock of Nixer who sees someone smiling. He immediately enters the room, reminding Gadolf that he had told him to refuse the match as they only had apprentice boxers on their side. But Gadolf was angry, asking Nixer if he could stand it. So he tells him that Dormon didn't have any proper boxers, so they might win if he does well. Nixer reveals that there were two ways. One was to prepare the best members and fight, or send out a sacrificial lamb for the next round. Gadolf angrily orders him to pick the best three and come, as he wanted to see Baron Dormon lose his temper. Nixer was pissed off, wondering how much more Gadolf wants to ruin the training center before he comes to his senses. As he left the room, he knew that if their ace like Torres were to become disabled, then the training center was over. A gloomy feeling overcame Nixer as he knew that there were only 3 days to train and prepare their aces. Torres, Mantis, and Kalli were gathered together the next day. Nixer informs them that he had decided to train all 3 of them and to put them in a match against Dormon's training camp in 3 days. The reason he chose these 3 was because they were the ones whom Nixer and the other instructor thought were the best. Torres was worried as he asked Nixer if he thought that this team would win. He showed a painful expression as he remembered Gadolf's words, so he turned around, telling them that they had a ridiculously small chance of winning. Mantis felt afraid, asking Nixer if they were going to die if they lost. But Nixer tells them that the master wouldn't let them die since they were his property, but the opponents were a whole different story as they were allowed to break their bones if they wanted to. Nixer then points to 3 other instructors, telling Torres to spar with them repeatedly, as he wanted him to gain more experience in 3 days. Looking at Mantis, he tells him to train his mentality in order to handle his fear. Lastly, for Kalli, he tells him if he needs anything, just ask for it. As Nixer had chosen him because of his recent change, hence why he didn't prepare anything for him. Kalli then started to think about what he needed and told him he needed one person to help with his training. We now turn to Torres being punched in the face. His opponent was an instructor, telling him to not hold back. He warns him that his opponents were going to be experienced fighters. But he reminded him that they were human too. No matter how strong they are, when you hit them, they will fall. He even tells him to act like the winner even if his legs were shaking and when he was about to collapse. Torres needed to make his opponent feel as if he was an immortal human being. But as the instructor tells him to take a break and continue later, something catches his eye. He sees Kalli training alone against the walls, making him wonder what he was doing in this training field. We are introduced to Valkyrie, a laborer, who is asking Kalli if he was crazy for wanting him to throw the thing in his hand. "Just do it," shouted Kalli. Feeling like he had no choice, Valkyrie did as he was told and threw the stone right at him, which Kalli managed to dodge. Hit or miss, that is one of the keys of modern boxing. Kalli knew that no matter how hard he trained in 3 days, there was no way it would make him grow muscles. Using footwork and weaving in order to train his reflexes, that was the most important weapon for him right now. As he catches the final stone in his hand, Kalli tells him that it was good and that's all for today. Sharpening body reflexes, that was also training for boxers. As we turn to the dorms where the fighters slept, an argument breaks out as they shout angrily at one another. Kalli was inside the room and was confused about what was going on. One of the fighters was holding a knife made out of stone, saying that he wouldn't forgive Dorman with a pissed-off look on his face. Kalli then asks Mantis about what was going on, but he too didn't know what was happening. Kalli knew that he knew, so he forced Mantis to tell the truth. Mantis revealed to him that the fighters from Dorman training camp had just come by. They had started to beat them mercilessly because they were angry about the match. But there were no hard injuries, only bruises, so it was hard for the instructors to handle. Mantis only felt fear after seeing that, as he knew that they were going to be completely defeated. The fighter with the stone knife shouted angrily, "Dorman, those sons of bitches. I'll kill you," but Nixer appears at the doorway, asking them about what they were doing. He looks at them with an angry face, asking if they were stupid. He then slaps the fighter holding the stone knife, telling the others that if they lose, that was it. Reminding them that they had lost in the first place, which made them clench their fists in anger. But he tells them to become stronger than Dorman's fighters from now on. This was when Kalli realized that after training and living with them, he had developed a bond with them. Starting from now, the fight wouldn't only be an event for the citizens but also the fight for Gadov's pride. This was the battle between two training camps. 3 days later, at the August Estate Arena, the stands were buzzing with people, which meant that half of the estate's people must have come. Nixer is seen giving herbal tea to Torres, Mantis, and Kalli, telling them that it would relax them and give them strength. He reminds them to raise 2 fingers high if they were going to lose, since it's better to have your pride hurt than to become a cripple. He then tells them the order in which they were going in. First was Mantis, second was Torres, last was Kalli. Mantis immediately spits out the herbal tea, which surprises Kalli. Mantis was wondering why he was first as Nixer brings him out, telling him to do well and come back. But before he left, Kalli walked up to him, giving him a piece of advice. "Don't let the opponent get close to you. Got it?" said Kalli with a serious look on his face. Mantis was annoyed with Kalli's advice as he shouts back at him angrily, telling our boy that he had to come close in order to hit him. As he entered the arena, Mantis was feeling afraid. Even though the crowd was cheering him on, even telling him to win while others wondered if he was an apprentice due to his impressive height. And so, the announcer calls in the opponent, a warrior with 14 wins from Dorman Training Center. The boxer called Ba, who had scars on his head that looked like horns while giving off an incredibly strong aura. As he approaches Mantis, he tells him that having long arms and legs doesn't necessarily make him strong. Hearing from his opponent, Mantis began to shake even more due to fear. Torres sees this and spits, telling Kalli that Mantis was acting totally stiff, while Kalli was concerned about what was going to happen. We now turn to the 3 nobles watching the match. Dorman mentions that Mantis was tall but still a kid as he asks Gadolf if it was true. This man is Baron Joshua Dorman. Hearing his words annoys Gadolf as he replies that the match hasn't even started yet, but inside his mind, he curses at Nixer as he wants him to send someone who can win. And so, the referee announces the start of the match. Ba immediately goes rushing in, striking towards Mantis who screams at each of his punches while Ba was simply smiling. The crowd grew angry upon seeing the pathetic state that Mantis was in, asking him if he was a man. Mantis was still running away, thinking that the crowd was talking too much shit. But Ba appears with a crazy look in his eyes, asking Mantis about how long he was planning on running away. Mantis sees that his fist was coming for his head, so he immediately crosses his arms to protect it from the hit. But it turns out that Ba was aiming for his body the entire time as he manages to slip past Mantis's defense, landing a blow so powerful that it causes Mantis to spit out his saliva and snot. Pathetic. Mantis, Ba couldn't believe that he had fallen for such a trick. And then he lands another blow, straight onto his face. The others could only shout at him with concern before seeing that Mantis had fallen onto the ground. The crowd was angry at him for losing so easily, so they yelled at him to get up. As he laid on the ground, Mantis wondered how he could win as the referee started the countdown. He thought about giving up at first, but then he notices the pissed-off bombastic side-eye look that Gadolf was giving him. Ba thought that he had won, but something behind him drew his attention. Mantis had stood up, although he was struggling to stand. He knew that if he lost without even throwing a punch, then he would be kicked out of the training center. Ba was excited to see that Mantis was still standing, asking him if he still had the will to fight. "Shut up, I'm a boxer too," shouted Mantis angrily at Ba. He then tells himself to calm down in order to do as the instructor said. He recalls a memory from when Nixer was asking him if it was true that Kalli had beaten him. As Mantis tells him that it was true, Nixer questions him on whether he thought about why he lost. So he tells him that he hasn't thought about it yet. Nixer tells him that although he didn't see the match personally, he knew that Mantis had the advantageous condition as a boxer. With a big height, long arms, and legs, it was obvious to Nixer that Mantis didn't use them well. He continues to tell him that he must have lost his cool and gotten impatient, which allowed for Kalli to easily get close. He reminded him that if he does this in the upcoming match as well, he was going to lose for sure. As Mantis lets out a deep breath, he thinks about Nixer's words. Always be calm, don't be afraid, don't let him get close. Intercept the attacking opponent. So he follows those words exactly, resulting in him unleashing a powerful green aura as he punches Ba straight into his face. Ba was alarmed to see this as he was pushed back by the impact of the punch, while the others were happy to see this. Mantis was shocked by what he first had just done, but then he realizes with a big smile on his face that his fist, it works.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.